Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to I'm going to call it a very special edition of BOA The Revival. Now, before we get started, I want to talk to y'all because I am going to take the month of August off. So this is the last episode you're going to hear until September 4th. It's only 4 shows. I'm just haven't hit the wall, but I can see the wall coming. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going on vacation in about a week, and like my first real vacation in a long time. And I'm like, let's just stop, step back. We taped the first episode of The Revival last August. Let's just kind of reset, get everything going. The website, I don't know if anyone even goes to it anymore, but it's been fucking literally like a white screen with a error message for like a month. So it's just a fucking nightmare. And maybe I can get that fixed. I don't know. Or at the very least, tape a whole bunch of shows in August when I get back from vacation, and then we get rolling in September. We'll kind of be ahead of it. I mean, this is like 41 shows. John will be the 41st show. And it's like, I was going to go to 52, and then I'm like, what? Why? That's just your own OCD, like playing tricks on you and shit. So, and then I was like, well, Becky Galentine was episode 40. That's a round number. Maybe I should stop there. And it's like, well, you have to tell people you're not coming back for a while. So as John will attest, then the light bulb went off in my drunken head on Wednesday night, and I said, I need a guest. I need a goddamn fucking banger of a guest. I need a real fucking home run guest that I know people will listen to, so that I can tell them I'm going to be off for a month. Then I said, I got to call John. So then I call him up in my drunken foolishness, and God bless him. He's sitting on the couch on Wednesday evening. And this is all a true story, folks. Answers the phone, and I'm like, yeah, you want to come on the show in like 3 days? And Tenney's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So here we are, tonight on Binnall of America. I consider him a good friend. We're almost a dangerous pairing, I think. We're so similar. We're dangerously similar. We like to smoke. We like to drink. We like to go out and cause trouble and just find adventure. And every time we've been together, we've only met at a couple of conferences, but every time it's like, this is combustible. This is a dangerous combination here. So I'm thrilled to get him back on the show. The illustrious, the beloved John Tenney. Welcome back to Binnall America, my friend.
Hello, Tim. How are you doing? Oh, I interrupted your, I heard the cigarette lighter click.
Switch over to,
There's going to be a lot of cigarette lighter clicking in this episode.
People will like that.
For people who are listening, keep track, send out how many times you heard the cigarette lighter click, and you'll win a special prize.
Exactly. There you go. I don't think you had launched What's Up Weirdo since we last talked, because it's been a few years, and now it's it's like a phenomenon with Jessica Nappick, right?
Yeah. No, we've seen each other since I think we had been doing What's Up Weirdo.
Oh yes, we saw each other in Nashville. Yes,
yeah. It started with COVID because Jessica and I talked to each other on the phone almost every day, and I wanted to do something as a podcast, but everybody was doing podcasts because it was COVID.
Right.
And so I said, listen, I'm just going to tape one of our phone conversations every week and we'll release that. And we don't have to have a format. We can just talk about whatever we want to talk about, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, or horror movies, or deaths in the family, like everything. It's just two friends talking to each other.
Yeah.
I think that really appeals to people, though. I think there's
sure.
There's first of all, there's a voyeuristic quality to it because you're just listening to two friends talk. And secondly, I know when I go to the bar, I love not so much people watching, but I like people listening. I like listening to the drunk people around me and their conversations. And so I think it fulfills that psychological quality that people have too, to listen in on stuff. I think what's weird though is we don't have any secrets and we'll talk about anything. So I mean, I think that statute of limitations is up on all of our crimes, but we've talked about stuff like that too.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. I'm sure you have quite the rap sheet at this point. So yeah, and I should mention, I was trying. Yeah, so Linktree, John E.L. Tenney is essentially. John has all kinds of. He's prolific. So just find him there. He's got a new zine out. That's the big thing that everyone's talking about right now. This is the Prince of Outer Space, talking about the life of Lee Childers. And
this is the first. This is going to be a collection because at the top of the zine it says "Library of the Curious." So there'll be multi volumes of this, each focused on a unique individual, somehow associated with weird phenomenon, high strangeness. So this first one is the Prince Neosum or Lee Childers, the Prince of Outer Space. The next one is actually going to be dedicated to, it'll be all about Marion Kukolo, who was the Michigan Green Witch. Her name was Gundala.
Oh, nice.
So the next one is all about a witch.
Awesome. What gave you the inspiration to do this? Because I was talking to you Ufology guys. You guys kind of both came out right at the same time. And then I was talking to other people, our friend Matt Hopewell, and I'm like, the zine thing, I think it's the zine. This might be the next thing. Like zines are, it's anyone can subscribe to a Patreon and get extra audio or whatever, or a video show or something. But like zines are fucking cool. And it's just old school. You get them in the mail and shit.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a perfect storm. So I tried to think back. I did my first fanzine in high school. I was 13. And it was called The Slander, and it was very punk rock, all obviously cut and pasted, Xeroxed. The cover the cover was a picture of my hand, flipping the middle finger, and there was like an anarchy symbol on the back of my wrist, and then inside were just, I don't know, 100 jokes I made up about Ronald Reagan or something like that. It was like my first fanzine, and then over the next probably that would have been 83 or 84. And then probably over the next 20 years, I don't know, I must have done at least 36 fanzines. All like I had a fanzine called Scenic where I published like the Kennedy assassination autopsy photographs in it.
Oh, God.
But in that same fanzine, I also interviewed, because it was the early 90s, I interviewed Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I've always loved fanzines. I've always liked the kind of freedom to do whatever you want to do. And then, so I guess watching how social media is moving and watching like the current pulse of what people are doing. And then kind of coincidentally, synchronistically, I cleaned out my attic and I had all of the original cut and pasted pages of fanzines. This is probably a year and a half ago. And I was like, why am I holding on to these? And I threw them all away.
Oh, no.
And well, you got to get rid of stuff. They were in boxes. I hadn't opened for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
But once I threw them away, I was like, fuck, I got to do another fanzine. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do it about? And there are obviously in the world of paranormal, ufology, cryptozoology, like there are super well-known stories of people, contactees and witches and occultists and all this stuff. But there are people who slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the opportunity to give those forgotten weirdos their moment to shine. So I've always dug really kooky contactee stories, and I've the story of Lee Childers, I've always kind of held close to my heart because it's a Detroit-based story, but he was only on the UFO scene for like maybe 4 years and then just vanished. And I was like, this is the story I want to tell, because it's one of those stories that's just bizarre. Like, he bakes pies for a living and then, meets a giant extraterrestrial Lieutenant Emu who's like 9 foot tall, and they take him on a ship to a planet-sized, like almost Death Star-like ship, and like then he gets. We can get into his story. There's a lot there.
Yeah, he's an interesting character, that's for sure. That's why I like the old school UFO, the flying saucer world, really. It's like, there's where you find the best, really weird stories.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, too, right? Like, there's also, and it is because of the way social media is now, like, everyone, I get it, right? I get it. I get wanting to, like, debunk stories and, like, prove things as hoaxes and prove things that didn't happen. Like, I get it. That gets a lot of clicks and a lot of social engagement for people, right?
Yeah.
But like 35 years of me doing this, like sometimes a fucking funny story is just a funny story. Like
exactly, yeah.
You don't have to spend you don't have to do a 2-hour fucking deep dive into some of these like contactees to prove that like their story's not true. Like sometimes it's just a good, funny fucking story.
Right. Yeah.
And I think people have forgotten that. Like, if it's not doing anyone harm, if it's not like causing some kind of social upheaval, or it's not keeping someone
it's like
down,
not spreading hate and shit or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, then just fucking enjoy it. It's the guy bakes pies and he went to a different fucking planet. Awesome. Like,
yeah.
Just leave it as it stands. I think people forget that storytelling is about telling a story. It's not like coming to a giant conclusion. I mean, yeah. So like even my zine, like my zine really doesn't resolve any issues. I don't say whether or not like it's all hoax and fake. Like there's information in there. You can draw your own conclusions, but I just want to tell this fucking weird story. Isn't there what's wrong with just telling a weird fucking story?
There's nothing wrong with it here. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, like, no, I have no problem. If someone's being like, if they're doing fucking damage to someone, if they're doing damage to a community of people, if they're doing damage to a subset community, like of anyone, and they're making up bullshit, then fucking take them down. Like, I have no problem with that.
So are some people mad that you did a Lee Childress zine? Are they like, oh, that guy, Lee Childress is bullshit. Like, who's the one dude who came out of the woodwork? Is it Go Rightly? It's not. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. No,
like, I know. In the like from the 2017 up till now era, right? Like, there's a lot of people who are telling bullshit stories for political mechanisms.
Oh yeah, there's a whole book coming out in a few weeks for people who like bullshit stories.
Yeah, like, and by terrible people who have like terrible agendas. Like, take that shit down. I get it. Do deep dive on that, but. You got a fucking farmer somewhere who sees like a giant UFO and meets some fucking, springboards that have mouths. Like, cool. Like, let's hear about that.
Yes, those are the stories I want to hear about, really, more than I'm in the Air Force and I was up and I saw a little dot that moved like in a funny direction. It's like, I don't give a fuck about your little dot, dude. Like, like, did you talk to them? Did you interact with them? Did they give you a fucking pancake? No, you saw a dot. Like, get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the encounter stories are the best. Yeah,
and Lee, it's one of those things too. Like, Lee's story in the fanzine has some really interesting, like, some of the stuff I don't even mention. I like people to do their own research and stuff, but so like his first encounter with one of the spacemen is he goes to a hospital in Michigan because his daughter's epileptic, and he meets like a contact, like a Venusian, like a kind of stock blonde haired white person in a maroon jumpsuit who's an extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of his first encounter. It doesn't last very long. It happens in the parking lot of this hospital. But like what I found interesting is it's the same hospital that Richard Shaver was at when he said, when Shaver said that he was like in the interior Earth. They were at this, like, it wasn't at the same time, but it was the same fucking hospital.
That's strange, yeah.
And that's fucking weird. So I'm like, okay, so there are good, weird connections in this guy's kind of benign story. And then, I think it's the maybe fourth or fifth time he meets an extraterrestrial. This is where I'm like, okay, I love this story. He's standing outside of do you guys did you ever go to Hudson's? Was Hudson's a nationwide chain of stores?
No, I don't think it's. No.
Okay, it's like JCPenney.
Okay.
He was outside of a Hudson's in Detroit, and like kind of had telepathic communication with a woman, and then they sat next to each other on a bus, and then like they went to the bar and had drinks, and she is an extraterrestrial. And I'm like, I love this fucking story.
That's great. Yeah. Shit.
And you even see like aspects when people always talk about like kind of archetypes in stories. No one knows Lee Childer's story. It's not a well-told contactee story, but somehow or another, like sitting at a bar, having a drink with an extraterrestrial, like if you flash forward 35 years in Ghostbusters 2, the Bill Murray character is hosting like a Psychic World television show or something like that. And he's interviewing a woman and she's like, yeah, I met this extraterrestrial and we went to the bar and had drinks.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh, fuck, it's the Lee Childers story.
Jesus. Well, it's really weird that like we don't have these. I've talked about this on the show, but in the past, but I think I'm interested in your take on this because you've seen a lot like I have. But it definitely seems like that shit all happened way before. We don't get these stories now. Like, there aren't people like who are talking to ETs or whatever. Maybe there are. I mean, I'm sure there are if you go on the internet. Maybe it's just it's so distributed differently that we don't encounter these people. But you don't hear these crazy stories like humanoid encounters or things like that anymore. It's very weird.
Yeah,
at least in America.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. It does still happen. If you go on the internet, there are a wealth of people who have there's a wealth of people who talked to ascended masters and brothers of light and extraterrestrial consciousness and like all of this stuff. But yeah, the physical, like I was walking down the street and I saw an extraterrestrial, and then he gave me some information, and then he got back in a giant cigar and flew off into the sky.
Right.
Like people don't tell those stories anymore. And I think that they probably do happen, but people don't want to say that anymore.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah.
Like we're in an era now where like everyone is going to be like, oh, this person's having a crisis. We better lock them up.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's part of it too. Yeah. You come out and you're like, look, I talked to an alien. It's not just like that your town's going to laugh at you. It's like the whole fucking world is going to laugh at you because now your story is going to it's going to be spread to the whole fucking world. So I think, people probably are more cautious where they're like, I don't think I want to tell anyone that story about how the fucking alien came down I talked to him for like 5 minutes and then he left. So
yeah, and you know that's the thing too. Like people know if they tell a story, it could spread around the world. Like it could get viral on TikTok or whatever on Instagram, and then all of a sudden everyone knows your weird story of meeting a hot dog man. You know, from Venus, which makes the contactees of the 1950s and 60s even more interesting because they didn't think they were going to become famous.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's no bonus in it for them. Like if anybody found out, they would just think they were nuts, you know. And people go like, oh, well, they sold books. They were selling fanzines. You know, if you look at those books, most of them were like self-published. 28 to 40 pages with cardstock covers, and they sold them for like 25 cents, and maybe sold 200 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this idea that like these people did this shit to get rich is like so misinformed. It's like, dude, nobody fucking makes money in this shit. No one, even back then. Maybe like one or two did, but once that happened, then nobody else did.
Right. But I think that like in this day and age, there is money to be made. Like
that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I've talked to people about this a lot. Like I do a lot of conferences and conventions, and, I'm not one of even though people like hearing my lectures, like I'm not a big, huge catch prize at these events. And, there are certain conventions where speakers are getting, $10,000, $20,000 for the weekend. So you figure, if they do 5 of them a year, you just made $100,000 and $150,000 for.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. For working 5 weekends.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count. Like if you get to be a talking head on a television show and they ask you to come on 3 times and pay you $1,000 each time. So, I mean, there is money to be made. And plus, that's not counting like free air flights and free food for
sure.
DMs and shit like that. Like you can make, and then if you're ex-military, you're gonna get fucking contracts off this shit. Like,
oh yeah. Well, that's the UAP business now, right? So,
that's exactly correct. The UAP business.
I won't even call it UFOs anymore because it's not even the same fucking thing. It's it's two separate things. I still say UFOs, but when I'm talking about certain people and certain instances, I say UAP because it is just like a completely different. It's
phenomenon.
a bubble in and of itself. Yeah. That's what I like about it, though, in a sense, because I've come up, like you. It's like, well, this almost reminds me of like the 9/11 thing, where it like kind of like formed on its own, and now it's got, even within that bubble, it's got the people who like are skeptics and haters, and the people who are like ardent believers, and they're just floating along in their fucking bubble. They don't even realize that they burst away from the earth. It's kind of a bummer if you're into the old school UFOs, although I guess in a sense they kind of leave us alone, so it's good in that way. Yeah,
I remember, 2016, 2017, when all of the new UAP UFO stuff started. I was getting hit pretty hard by the new bros that were coming in and the new people that were coming in. Like, for calling me like gatekeeping and the old guard and stuff like that and not paying any attention to me. And it frustrated me at first. And now I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not in that fucking circle. Like, I'm so glad that they did whatever they did to take me off of their list because it is the most boring shit in the world. It is, like you said.
So boring,
I was just talking in another podcast, like, if you're interested in UFOs right now and you go on like Twitter and you find like UAP bros, you will find endless threads that go on for hours, or like X Live or YouTube shows where people will argue like, well, it was actually AAWSAP when it was AASP, when it was actually UAWSP when it was UAPASSSAP. And I'm like, the fuck, you just spent 2 hours arguing over abbreviations for the name of an organization. Like, that's no fucking fun to me. Where's the fucking UFOs?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then you get the government reports and shit, and they're just as fucking boring. And it's like they're going to add another amendment to the appropriations bill that's coming out, and it's going to say that we get to have a certain amount of records from 1963 to 1972. And it's like, bro, I don't give a fuck about, like, what do you think? Like, what? You think they're going to accidentally be like, oh shit, we left that picture of the alien in there? What do you think you're going to accomplish with these records or whatever? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's a conversation that I've had for years with people, because I started with the Kennedy assassination years ago is how I kind of got into all this. And one of the things that we used to talk about, people are like, oh, well, you just wait, like, whatever it was, because they keep changing to 2040, all the records will be released, 2040, all the records. Yeah. And me and my friend Craig used to say, like, what do you think is going to be fucking in there? You think they haven't changed and burned shit? All they're going to give you is fucking, paper receipts from grocery stores and like more shit to send you down blind alleys for the next 60 years. There's nothing in there.
Yeah. At most, it's like this guy who just died like 5 years ago was a spy that we had in Russia, and he sent us this one report that fucking like barely tangentially is related to this. It's like, absolutely. All right. You just didn't want to out this old spy. Like that's all you were waiting for. Yeah, for sure. And again, like thinking that, I've had people arguing too, like, obviously we're in the midst of a election year and people are, I hadn't heard.
Yeah. That's happening, Tim.
Yes. Unfortunately, no matter what I do, I can't prevent it. Yes.
But you always get people saying like, well, they're presidents know all about UFOs and flying saucers. They know the secrets, and whoever, like, they're going to leak it one day, one of these presidents. And again, the argument is like, the president is not going to know about UFOs. At the most, a president has power for 8 years at the most. Like you're not going to give the keys of the kingdom, if there are such things, to someone who's going to be there for 4 years.
Right. Especially
Like
now, and like I don't. I mean, people know my politics, but that's beside the point. There's no fucking way they told, like, if there were aliens coming to Earth, that they would have told Trump. There's just no fucking way, because he couldn't be trusted not to tell anyone. So.
Oh yeah, he would have the next day. The next day he would have.
Or he would allude to it all the fucking time. He would allude to it to the point that it was like, why do we even tell you, dude? He'd be like, I don't know. I can't. He would just tease aliens all the time.
If there was a president,
you're like, he's pretty much, there's aliens.
Yeah, if there was a president that knew about UFOs, and I say this pretty, I'm pretty sure if there were presidents who knew about UFOs, it would have been George Bush Sr.
I think that's when it got cut off. I was just thinking when you were about to say that, I was kind of going through my mind. I'm like, when do you think that they stopped telling them? And that was probably it. George Bush Sr. Right after Reagan, George Bush Sr. Then they probably stopped because Bill Clinton came in, and then. Well,
I think that the only reason Bush Sr. would know is he's like head of the CIA. Yeah. So it's like if anyone's going to have that secret, it's going to be him. And everybody else, like Bill Clinton gets up on stage and plays saxophone on Arsenio Hall, and they're like, we can't tell this guy about aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It boggles the mind, the attitude of this movement, because I've said on the show many times that they have no end game. Like, what are you going to fucking do when the aliens come? What do you think they're going to live with us? It's like Alienation, like the movie Alienation. Like they're going to just come and integrate and fucking work at Subway and shit and be part of like society. Like what do you want? Like, what is your end game?
We can't do that with each other.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's not going to happen with someone from Zontar. I don't know if Zontar is a planet, but it is now.
It should be. But that always kind of boggles my mind. Because it's like they want the government to tell us aliens are real, but then it's like, then what?
Well, and I hear a lot of people too, and this has been said, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. Like people are like, well, once we know, it's like the greatest secret in the history of humankind. And I've always argued that it's not. Like I have this imagining of like a giant silver flying disc coming down all over the earth, and the aliens come out and they greet us as humans. And like their first question is, hey, do you guys know what happens after you die? Like, are there ghosts and shit?
Yeah. Have you guys figured that out yet? Yeah.
Like, you figured that out yet? Because it's really fucked us up for a long time.
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're just kind of traveling around. Trying to figure it out, man. Yeah. Yeah,
we've been ghost hunting for, 200,000 years. We're trying to figure it out.
Well, that was I had that conversation with Kutch a few months ago. That I do think, that's the real motherlode. That's the real secret. That's the real mystery. What happens when you die? Like, who gives a fuck about the aliens and shit? Like, that's the real, because we're all going to experience it. So it's the big mystery of life.
Yeah, during my lectures, I will often talk about, like, it so much fascinates me that the scientific community really has brushed it off and doesn't care about it, what happens to us after we die. I mean, I say this at my lectures. If you imagine, like, the first 3 sentient kind of self-aware cave people, and they're standing around outside near a cave, and then, like, one of the 3 dies, like, just falls over, clunk. You would have thought that investigation into what happens after you die would have started in that moment. Like the second one would have looked at the first one and been like, what the fuck just happened to that guy? Is that going to happen to me?
Is he coming back? You think he's coming back? All kinds of questions.
Let's leave him and see what happens. And then eventually they got to a point where they were like, no, fuck, maybe it's like a seed and he's starting to stink. So let's like dig a hole and throw him in the ground. And,
right.
500,000 years later, we dig holes in the ground and throw people in them as if that's the answer.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. I've wondered about that. If like, that's one of those things that you wonder, like, if the government, fuck aliens, like, what do you guys know about death? Like, you had to have looked at it during one of your crazy, wicked, weird periods, like in the 60s and early 70s, where you guys were doing all kinds of crazy shit. So what do you know? Well,
here's the thing, right? So I'm going to go both ways on this. So let's say the government of the world and corporations and billionaires and whatever have studied it and they figured out the answer. Now, here's the two possible solutions, right? Solution number one, you die and there's fucking nothing. It's all for naught. It's a zero-sum game. Nothing happens. You're dead forever. That's solution number one, right? Solution number two is there's an afterlife. And in that afterlife, let's kind of go Judeo-Christian with it, because there's actually more than two answers, but I'm going with these two.
Sure.
You can go to heaven as long as you repent, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two big, maybe. I mean, yeah, there's a third. There's reincarnation. They find out there's reincarnation, whatever, but you don't carry over the memories.
I wish folks could see John. John has like a wicked face right now. He's just like, he knows, like he's about to drop the punchline on it.
But here's the thing. Those two, you can repent and go to heaven, or there's nothing. This would explain so many fucking actions of corporations, billionaires, and politicians. If they know that nothing fucking happens to them, and once they're dead, and fuck it all, like that explains why they're so fucking psychopathic.
Yeah, like
if
fatalistic.
If they know that they can repent and go to heaven, then fuck it, we're going to be psychopaths and do whatever we want because we can repent and go to heaven.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, that's frightening in a sense. If you think.
It's super frightening.
But it also explains a lot of the behavior of the powers that be, if you will. So
yeah,
it is strange.
And it works that way with those are the two. But like I said, there's a multitude of answers. It works with almost all of those answers because, like I said, if there's reincarnation and you're just doing better for your karma, then people are going to be like, well, fuck it, I'll fix it on my next go around, and I'm just going to be a psychopath now.
Yeah. Well, I think, in a sense, not having an answer to that question is actually what keeps the lid on fucking society, in a sense, or our civilization, like from simmering over. It's like if you knew how the game ends or whatever, everyone's lives would change. The whole perspective of people would change. So it's like we have to always have that unanswered question hanging over us, where it's like, I don't know, I better be on the straight and narrow here. Yeah,
it's really been. I get kind of weird, and I would love to go on. Like, there's a ton on YouTube. There's a ton of like atheist answering questions shows where they basically just want Christians to call in, and they just want to shoot down Bible verses.
Right.
And I get that. Whatever. Again, it's a fucking story. You don't need to fucking shoot it down unless it's doing harm. But I would like to call into some of these atheist shows, because if you do die and you're dead and there's nothing afterward, and it's all for naught, and then in 3 billion years the sun goes red giant and everything blows up and there's no extension to our existence, it just erases everything, then you would think that like scientists would herald our fucking march into extinction. Like they just be like, it's all pointless. There's literally no point to studying anything.
Yeah.
There's no point to collecting information and compiling information. There's no point. Like it doesn't end. It all ends. Nothing is saved. No one is saved. No memory is saved. No information saved. Fuck it. Like they should just herald us into extinction like the fucking dodo. Yeah. But they don't, because there's fucking money involved.
Well, aren't they kind of, though, like with the climate and everything? That's the other part that I've grown suspicious of in recent years, that like this thing is actually worse than they're telling us. That's my conspiracy theory. Like it's going to get much worse, much faster. We're in the quickening now. And it's like, they don't want to necessarily tell us, but they're like, probably in the next 10 years, a lot of places are going to be unlivable or whatever.
But it's like, if that's the case and they know about it, like I wouldn't be hosting YouTube shows and shit. Like, if they really believed that, like, it would be a paradigm shift in your mind to like live as large as possible, as much as you have left, instead of like, I'm just going to spend 6 hours a day on fucking YouTube shooting down people's fucking happiness about Jesus.
Yeah, but look at that fucking idiot Musk. He's on Twitter all fucking day, and he's got like more money than anyone literally on Earth. And it's like, dude, why are you on Twitter all day, you fuck? Like,
yeah, but he's psychopathic. He's got he's not smart. He's like the dumbest fucking guy who's, we make dumb people millionaires and billionaires in this world, unfortunately. People can be easily tricked with a good fucking pitch, and he's the perfect example of it.
He's a master pitch master. Yeah, he's
not self-aware enough to be like, listen, I should just be fucking happy and try and use this money to make everybody happy.
Well, it's crazy in a sense because like no one. I mean, I thought he was kind of an idiot like 3 or 4 years ago. And now I'm just like, I fucking hate the guy because he's so obnoxious. And it's like, boy, you really showed your ass, man. Like you could have kind of floated along as sort of just the sort of annoying. Even that, I'm like, I think he's from South Africa. I'm not sure. He could be from France. Like he's got an accent. But back then, I was just like, I don't know anything about this guy essentially. And it was like seems kind of sharp. He has a rocket company, an electric car company, and he's, but now it's like, oh, fuck that guy. I know his whole story. It's like, yeah, dude, yeah, you're no one to fucking hold up as a hero.
Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, I just don't get it too, because like, there's the other aspect too of like, how do I even say it? Like, if there's nothing, if you die and you're dead, if there's no spirituality, if there's no persistence of consciousness, if there's no afterlife or anything like that, and mechanized materialist atheists will tell you that's the way it is. That is truly how it is. And they'll even admit to you that there's no such thing as love. Like love is chemical reactions in your brain.
Oh God, what's the point of living? I know.
There's oxytocin that's released through your eyes into your brain, dopamine and serotonin levels change, and then you experience what we call love, right? But they don't say that to their fucking children. They say, I love you. Like, right. They don't walk up to their like 7-year-old and they go, when I look at you, there's a release of chemicals in my brain that makes me feel like I should take care. I'm being tricked by my nervous system into thinking I should take care of you. They tell their children they fucking love them. Yeah. So they don't even buy their own bullshit.
Well, there's no atheists in the foxhole, right? That's the old saying. It's, Now, I talked to you a while ago. This is like, I said at the beginning of the show, John is one of those people I have on my speed dial when I've had a few drinks. So I called John about a year ago before we relaunched BOA. And
You're one of the few people I answer for.
Oh, thank you. And I was in sort of a crisis point where I was just like, I have no passion for this. And I knew John has been in this for longer than I have. I only know a few people these days who have been in this longer than I have at this point. So, because all the rest keep fucking dying. So I knew John, and so I asked him, and maybe we can kind of talk about this a little bit, is how to sort of just keep that interest and passion for the paranormal, for the high strangeness, for the weirdness, how to sort of keep that rejuvenated in the face of what sometimes seems like a very static situation with a lot of unsavory characters.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, I think for me, the way that on my journey through all of this, the way that I think about it, years and years ago, my anecdote, years and years ago, I used to work at a comic book store, and it's comics and toys. And I would watch people bring stuff in and try and sell it. And, I bought this comic for $10. Now it's worth $100. And the owner of the store, Dave, told me, he said, listen, don't ever buy a comic or a toy because you think it's going to increase in value. Buy it because you want it. And that way it never loses value. Oh. And so like for me, the way that I keep interest is when I find myself starting to do stuff for money, I realize that's a bad reason to be doing it. Like, interesting. Yeah. I like to read books about weird shit. I like to talk to people about weird shit. I like to spend my life on the ground doing weird shit because it makes me happy. Not because it makes me money, not because it makes me clicks, not because it feeds me. If that stuff happens to come along with it, that's a bonus. But I'm doing it because I want to and I love it. So that's a way that like I have found myself many times over the past 35 years. We're either working on television shows or doing the research for someone else's book or like putting together information for someone's movie and dreading it.
Yeah.
And then realizing the only reason I'm doing it is because I'm being paid to do it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so once I kind of figured out how to separate myself from that, I started having my general love and interest of it again. Like, and then the other thing is too, I'm glad for people to like weird stuff. I can like the same weird stuff in a different way. I don't have to take someone's opinion. I don't have to watch someone's long form podcast about it. I don't have to watch someone deep dive about it. Like I might, and I often do, but I can continue to like it in the way that I like it without it being colored by someone else's crayons. Right. Like,
Right.
So that's another thing too. Be like, oh yeah, I read about that. I think it's really cool. And then someone will say like, but did you know this thing about it? And they got to one up you, right?
Oh, God,
and it comes back to what I said in the beginning. Like, that's great. I'm still gonna fucking like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're telling me the person is fucking terrible.
Yeah, like did you know he was a Nazi? Then it's like, okay, well let me rethink that. But
I had
it was like
for years and years, I would talk because it was such a goofy story. I would talk about Buck Nelson, right? Like he took his fucking dog to outer space and got chased by the Men in Black. And I would talk about Buck all the time at lectures and online and post pictures of the fucking dog that went to space. Oh, and then I found out that like his first book was like this racist screed. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to talk about Buck Nelson anymore.
Jeez, Buck Nelson. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unsavory characters, a lot of just bad actors that have come through this crazy field over the years. So
for sure. And that's one of the reasons that I was like, okay, well, I'll write this book about Lee Childers. Like I read everything about him. I researched him, found out everything I could about him. And I was like, okay, he's not a fucking terrible person. He doesn't seem to be racist. He doesn't seem to be sexist. He gets a little Christian-y sometimes, but that's all right.
Oh,
like
who doesn't? Who doesn't?
It's still, he's on a message of hope and peace. And so that's fine. And no one talks about him. So, I can't talk about Buck Nelson's weird story anymore. So I found another one that no one was talking about that's got an equally as weird, if not weirder story. Exactly.
Yeah. That rang a bell here when I mentioned unsavory characters, what's his name? Jan Harzan. He was apparently sentenced. I assume his sentencing hearing was yesterday, but I didn't see what he got for jail time. So
wait, is that his jail time just happening now?
He just got found guilty like a few weeks ago. So
how long has this been going on?
Since 2020.
I was going to say it's got to be moving into 5 years on this.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you. Well, he's headed to jail now, so I don't know how long for, but MUFON, quite the organization.
MUFON is made up of a lot of great people. This is the problem.
It is. I know. I'm just being
that's the problem, though. Like the people who are like genuinely into it are doing good work and great stuff.
Well, you know what made me sad? I was at an event in Baltimore like 3 years ago or so. No, pre-pandemic, so like 5 years ago. And the people, a couple of them were like state directors or something like that. And they said they had to go to they were required to go to the annual thing and pay their way and all this other shit. And it was like, child, no, this is not how it should work. You should not be required to pay to fly to Indianapolis or whatever.
It's like a UFO timeshare.
Yeah, this is craziness. Like, this is outrageous. I immediately, if I was the person, as soon as they were like, yeah, you got to fly to Indianapolis for the thing, I'd be like, I'm out. I'm not going to your fucking conference by
Yeah,
obligation.
I belong. Like, listen, I'm a member of a lot of clubs, and my favorite ones. I'll give you an example, like the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I belonged to them for years and years and years. One of my favorite clubs because they email me maybe 4 times a year, and then they send me a letter once a year to get my membership fee, and that's the only contact I ever have to have with them.
Nice. There you go. All right.
They don't force me to go to conventions. I don't have to like fly to Las Vegas for, the big linking rings convention.
Yeah, that really kind of opened my eyes to the whole scheme. I'm like, oh, now I see how this works. Like they have poor people who are like not literally poor, but just like unfortunate people who are roped into this thing. And yeah,
Tim, let me get this. Let me just make a comment on that comment. We're all fucking poor.
we are all poor. We have more in common with a person who's homeless on the street than we do with these people we see on TV and the billionaires and shit, for sure.
Yeah,
That's 100%. The big
100%.
mistake. That's the big mistake a lot of people make. It's like we're all in the lower end, dude. Like, come on. But
Yeah,
the problem is people
in a world
aspire to be rich. They aspire. Their minds go crazy, and they aspire to be richer. Like Joe the plumber. Remember that guy from the election like a few years ago? It's like they think someday I'm going to be super rich, so I want tax cuts for the super. It's like, bro, you're poor like the rest of us. Come on.
But that goes right back to what I said about like how to keep your passion for your interests, right? Like that aspirational, like think your way into money and the power of positive thinking and shit like that. Yeah. That does a lot of fucking damage to people. Like,
oh, I bet. Yeah.
Being told over and over again that like, you're just not thinking correctly about your upward mobility at your job. You got to change your way you think about that. Yeah, you fucking do. You got to do shit that you love. You don't have to fucking do what the boss tells you. Fuck it. If you're going to be poor, at least be happy and poor, and then do what you like. And maybe someone will catch fire and you won't be poor anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there who think they have a broken vision board. And it's like, no, man, right. It's just you got a broken vision. I love Steve Harvey, man. He always says everybody has a gift. You got to fucking figure out what your gift is, and you have to fucking do it. Once you figure out your gift, you're gone, man. You got it. So, but people
has Steve Harvey ever seen a ghost or a UFO or anything like that? Have you investigated that?
Not that I am aware of. No, not that I'm aware of.
You got to track that down.
I need to have a Steve Harvey encounter where I can finally meet him and then get, the
Wait, haven't you done this show for fucking 20 years?
Yes, but I can't just call Steve Harvey up.
What do you mean?
I suppose that's true. I should try. I should just always be trying to get Steve Harvey on Binnall America, just to be like an ongoing thing until it finally happens. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
100%. You need to create a Gmail account that is your assistant, and then have your assistant repeatedly like email and contact Steve Harvey Productions. Talk about your 20 years of broadcasting.
That'll be a landmark episode when it finally happens. Yeah, absolutely. Jesus
I'm excited. You've got me excited for it.
I know it's going to happen now. Now we put it out into the ether. Damn.
Is that the last episode of BOA?
Oh God, I'll take an extended break after that. I'll be like, I can't top this anyway. So what am I doing? This was Steve Harvey here. This is unreal, man. Oh my God. So what do you got going on elsewise? You're going to make more of these zines.
Yeah, like I said, the Gundella issue comes out probably for Christmas. I was planning on doing 3 every year, but life gets in the way, and I've put a lot less pressure on myself to be perfect and stuff. So I'm just doing things when I do them. So the Gundella issue will come out in December, and then there'll be 2 issues, and I'm printing 500 copies of each zine, and then that's it for that's their print run. And then once I've done 10 of them, I'll release the first volume, a collected volume. Nice. Yeah.
Nice. And do you do the art and all that with it too?
Yep. I did all the layout, all the writing, all the design, tracked down all the pictures. That was one of the really interesting things about doing zines for a long time was I eventually got a job at a magazine, a real like culture fashion magazine, because someone used to read my fanzines. And they put me in charge somehow or another. I don't even know. I didn't go to college for anything, but somehow or another I got put in charge of the advertising and design department.
Well, I just want to say, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, John. You are one of the most creative, like visual graphic designers that I have ever seen in this fucking field. I am genuinely like, John fucking gets it, and he can do it really fucking well. Like, I'm telling you, man.
Thanks. I think the fanzine came out looking fairly well. I'm never 100% happy with, stuff that I do. That I think that's kind of an artist mindset, but
yeah.
I think it looks good. I've tried. The paranormal community is filled with some fucking horrible graphics, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like from conference posters to book covers. Like, listen, I have no secrets, and I'll talk about whatever. Every fucking year when I see the poster for like Contact in the Desert, and it's just like 200 people's faces. I'm like,
this
is the worst. I'm like, this is the worst fucking poster in the world.
Yeah.
I've never I do understand like there's an ego trip that happens with people, right? But like I don't understand putting people's faces on flyers a lot of the time because
well, it's the way you can do it. Like you can do it like it's a cartoon or whatever, you know what I mean? Like something cool like that. But the headshots, the 82 headshots. It's like, what are you doing? 82
headshots in glowing bubbles, on a space background. Like I get it. And it happens with ghost stuff too, right? Like, okay, now it's got to be like the drippy, bloody font of the name of the place. And then, there's got to be some kind of ghost in the background. There's some blurry Photoshop, whatever.
Yeah.
But then like the background is black and the text is like dark blue and red. And I'm like, all of this looks terrible.
Yeah. It is, it's an interesting subculture. It reminds me of it's very similar to like the pro wrestling world. That's all. There was
a period of time. This was a few years ago. I think this was right before COVID. Like I literally, I think either it was on Twitter or maybe I said it on a podcast, but like I told paranormal authors, like, if you're putting out a book and you need someone to design the cover, like I'll fucking do it for free. I don't want you to have a terrible fucking book cover.
Yeah.
And no one took me up on it. And since that time, like I have just seen of course, just bevy of fucking terrible covers.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is even people with money. I mean, when they I could not believe what was the fucking skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
Oh, that one was like famous. Adam Gorelli had a field day with that one. He had the contest like to make it a better cover, and there were countless better covers. Yeah. Skinwalkers in the thing, in the Pentagon or whatever. Yeah, that was a fucking
is that like a stock art wolf face?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I don't know what the hell they were. That was just so weird. That whole fucking scene is weird, man. I just can't even.
And those are people with money.
Well, I talked about this I want to pivot off that in a sense, but like I talked about this with the ufology people, but it's like it never ceases to amaze me the demographic of like people that are like super UFO people also are kind of pretty right wing, and it's like, how do you expect to integrate the aliens into your fucking life, dude? I really don't get it. And I tie this to Bob Bigelow gave like fucking millions and millions of dollars to Ron DeSantis to be president. It's like, I thought you were into like the afterlife and shit, man. I thought you wanted to meet aliens. Like how that guy's like the opposite of the afterlife and aliens, bro.
I mean, it's always that right-wing faction in High Strangeness has obviously always been there. I mean, it goes back to like George Hunt Williamson and Adamski. Like it goes back. Like there's real problematic stuff but I mean, if you look at the rise of it, it really takes hold in like the mid 80s, right? Like all of a sudden you've got like Cooper and Phil Schneider, and he's fighting extraterrestrials at the Dulce underground base, and you start to get books. I mean, I remember walking into like a Borders in probably like 89 or 90 maybe, and like seeing like MI Labs, right? I think it's probably a Jim Keith book or something like that. But yeah, and that's right around the same time you get fucking David Icke writing like Greatest Secret. And that's where all this shit like burns from, man. Like all of a sudden you got ancient fucking bloodlines and the reptilians, and that just plays into that fucking weird racist right-wing narrative that leads us up to today. And then you're trying to watch military insider talk about his UAP experience, and you're looking in the background and he's got a fucking American flag, like a Punisher baseball hat, a rifle against the wall. And you're like, this guy doesn't want to fucking meet aliens. Like this guy wants to like hunt down other human beings because they're not from this country.
Right. Yes. Yeah. He'd be happy to like, they want to fight the aliens probably secretly. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
But it's really fucking weird.
It's very fucking strange and problematic. I think I said this at,
yes.
I think I said this at the Nashville convention. Like the other thing is too, like my end goal is to make, I am a bald 50-plus-year-old bearded white guy, right? My end goal is that I become obsolete. Like I want someone else who's not an old bald white guy to be talking to you, another old white guy. Like I want this, I want the time of old fucking white men to be over.
Yes. Well, it's coming to an end. I mean,
hopefully.
Yes, I think it is. I have no problem with that. I'm just having fun while it lasts.
Me too. I'm trying to have fun.
I'm not like, I guess that's what separates us from the other side, because we're not like desperately clinging to
right
fucking some kind of idea of what the world should look like. It's like the world's the world, man. Just keep fucking riding. So
yeah,
it's like get on the fucking ride or get off, man. That's that's we'll see what happens. Do you have? I hate to even bring it up, but do you have any feelings about how things are going to shake out in fucking November and all that?
I don't make political spending.
Yeah, I don't
so
want
many,
predictions.
No. Spending so many. I'll tell you this. Spending so many years. From 90. That was my first professional lecture. But like when I first got into everything with JFK and RFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, all that stuff in the late 80s, up until now, like historical political moments are so fucking fluid that I honestly tell people I don't have a clue, because I could have not ever predicted any of the things that I've seen happen in politics in America. And the narrative changes so quickly. Like I had a ton of fucking people call me at the attempted assassination, right?
Yeah.
And I told everybody, like, I can't even comment on it because 2 weeks from now, the story is going to be completely fucking different.
Yeah.
And
people almost forgotten about it now. It's just like, that's such a sad fucking, like, I don't know, example of how we live, where it's like, even like someone shooting at a former president is now old news, unless you're like part of the MAGA cult, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things because because of the inundation of violence that we experience from day to day. Like there are fucking killings every day. Like there's mass shootings every day, and sometimes don't get covered in the news. Like not enough people involved. Like doesn't even get covered in the fucking news.
It's like only 4 people got killed, so it's not.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That big a deal.
Yeah. And so back to what I was saying, no predictions, no speculation. I appreciate how bizarre this year has been politically.
Yes.
Again, I would have never predicted this at all, any of it. Like it's beyond predictions.
The last 3 weeks, especially the last 3 weeks, like last month or whatever, has been like.
This is a perfect example, though, that I talk about sometimes where it's like, I know people who say that they are psychic. Hundreds of them. I know probably thousands of them. None of them predicted any of this. Like, that is the one that always pushes me over the edge. Like, none of you saw this fucking coming. Like, nobody thought, none of you, thousands of you. Thousands of you who are on Twitter and TikTok every day.
Well, I had that conversation with Kiki like back during the pandemic, where it was like, how come no one just predicted the masks? Like, you would think that they would see the masks. Like, they would be like, there's a thing, everyone's wearing thing on their face. Like, you would think that would be like the most obvious psychic vision of the pandemic times. Even if you didn't know there was a pandemic happening, you'd be like, everyone's wearing shit on their faces now. But no one even mentioned that. So
I'll tell you what, I think, and I've said this, I don't even know for how many years, but I think that if you want great psychic predictions, you look to fiction. I think that fiction writers are super psychic and don't know it. You said, why did no psychics pick up on people having to wear masks, right? So, they did, but it was in the fictional realm. So like my friend is Josh Mallerman. He's an author who lives here in Michigan, right?
Yeah, Bird
Box.
2016.
He writes a book where everybody has to wear masks.
Ah, all right.
Right?
Yeah.
So like it's getting, the psychic stuff is getting to people who are open to their imagination.
Yeah.
Right? It's presenting itself differently, but go back and look. If you ask people who was the best psychic in the world, they'll tell you people like H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, like science fiction authors.
Yeah.
Right? Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke. Like, because they were allowing their imagination to speculate about the future openly.
Interesting. Yeah.
They end up writing about stuff that actually
That's true.
happens.
Yeah.
So look to your science fiction writers, maybe not your psychics. Even though I do know people who are psychic, they're just,
it's a different kind of thing. They can't predict world events.
Right.
They don't have that kind of psychic power. They can tell you like only very small, personalized, individual things when the energy is right. I think.
Right, but not numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, not addresses and not lottery numbers.
No. None of that
specific.
shit.
Not that specific.
No. It's too. That's way too specific. So I'm going on this paranormal ghost hunt in September. I've built it up now too much, I think, because I've talked to a lot of guests about it. But do you have any suggestion for what I should bring to the table? What my mood should be during this experience? I'm going to Wilson Castle.
Wilson Castle.
Yeah, in Vermont. And I'm going to be doing like a 4 or 5 hour ghost tour with the Paranormal 5 group out of Maine.
I would, as I tell everyone, I would take with you a film camera.
What do you mean a film camera? Like not a cell phone camera?
A film camera.
Okay.
35 millimeter film in a camera.
All right. Okay.
They're very trendy right now, so you can get them fairly cheap. Films on a return. And I would take an audio cassette recorder.
Okay.
Not digital recorder.
Old school. Yeah. Old school. Yeah. All right.
Yes. Analog tape and film. That's what I tell everybody. That's what I've used.
Interesting.
That's what I've used for 35 years. I prefer to use that stuff. Even when I go on television shows, like I had to do an episode of Kindred Spirits one time, and I kind of left pretty quick, so I didn't get to pack very much. I had to kind of be there quick. And so I got there and I was like, fuck, I don't have an analog tape recorder. But lucky for me, like less than a quarter of a mile away, there was a Goodwill store. And so like I literally went into the Goodwill store and there was a stack of them. So, like I bought one and used it on the show, and it was great. It's a simple machine. And when I tell people about like EVP sessions have been done since the 1930s and 40s, right? As long as analog tape has been around, people have been kind of recording weird ghostly voices on tape. No one figured out if it was doing something or why it was doing something, if it is doing something, but it seemed to be doing something.
Yeah.
Then we got digital recorders and people were like, oh, well, fuck that. We're going to use digital recorders. And something seems to work on digital recorders. Digital recorders and analog tape record in completely different ways. So that's actually two different phenomena. If something's happening on an audio cassette, that's one thing, because that's magnetic tape. That's ferromagnetic tape and a magnet. And if you're recording on a digital recorder, there's a chipset inside the recorder that's measuring air pressure and reconstructing sound. Those are completely different ways.
Wow.
And no one figured out how the first one worked before they moved to the new technology. And the same thing works with film and digital cameras. The way that a film camera works is completely different than the way a digital camera works. If you catch a ghost on one and a ghost on the other, you've caught separate phenomena.
Wow. Interesting. Jesus.
See?
I'm kind of blown away right now.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right.
Thank you.
Wow.
I try.
So bring old school equipment. All right.
Bring old school equipment. And listen, like I said, you can buy a film camera like off Amazon now for like $8.
Yeah.
You can probably buy an analog tape recorder on Amazon too for probably $20. Or you can go on eBay and buy one.
I'm sure. Yeah. All right.
So do that. And then here's another thing that I tell people to do. Have you ever done an electronic voice phenomena session?
No. I'm a complete newcomer to all this stuff.
Have you ever seen people doing one?
I'm sure I have.
So you like put a recorder in the middle and then everybody asks questions.
Okay, yeah.
And then you listen back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I try and get people to do is ghosts don't have ears as far as we know. Yeah. I mean, they don't have a physical body.
Right.
So if they're hearing us, they're not hearing us with ears, like physical ears. They don't have physical ears. They don't have a body.
Yeah, sound waves and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're probably, if they hear us, what they're probably doing is discerning the intention, thought, and motivation of the question, not actually hearing the words of the question.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're doing an EVP session, you can do two things. One, you can ask questions without saying it out loud. Because if they're discerning the thought and motivation of the question, not the words, you don't need to say the words and you can still get a response. And that happens. And I've done it and it happens. And it's very fucking weird to ask a question in your head and then hear a response on the recorder to the question.
And that should, that means not like some kind of like grading or whatever. That means, in my mind, that means more than if someone's like, hey, what's your name or whatever, then it answers. Like if you think it, you get an answer, that to me is like, all right, now we're really fucking playing with fire.
Yeah, now you're rolling, right? Because now you're talking about like fucking telepathic ghosts.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the most common form of that telepathy, if we want to call it that, of thoughts being discerned, the most common form humans have done for thousands of years all around the earth. It's called fucking praying. You close your eyes, you speak inside your mind, knowing that your thoughts are being heard by someone else outside of your head.
Yeah.
So that's an experiment to do. Ask questions without saying them out loud.
All right, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been fun. I've kind of surveyed all of my different ghost hunting friends here. So I'll be well armed when I get to Wilson Castle in September. So interesting.
And here's the other thing. Keep it light. Over the past 35 years.
Well, you know me, so.
But here's the thing. Over the past 35 years, I get it. Like, people have watched a lot of television and movies, and so they want to be like, how did you fucking die? Did it hurt when you bled out on the floor? Like, I've seen people do that. Like, people do it when the axe hit you. Like, don't, like, keep it fucking light. Keep it like, do you want to tell me the name of someone you love? Do you need me to pass a message along to someone you love? What kind of food did you love? What was your favorite song? Keep shit light. You know, if you want, you don't walk up to a fucking stranger in a bar and you're like, hey, tell me your fucking trauma. Like, that's not how you start a conversation with someone, right?
Yeah.
You start a conversation. Like, think about ghost hunting as talking to a stranger in a bar. Can I sit here? Thank you. And then sit down, right? And then, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? What's going on? Do you come here often? Like to have a conversation like you would with a normal fucking person.
I will try that. I had two different approaches when I did a ghost hunt last time. First time I was part of like the thing with the equipment and all that. Then the next time I was like, I'm just going to go to the next room and just kind of like just chill and sit. But I had no interaction. So we'll see.
I don't investigate. When I do large group investigations at these conventions and conferences, I don't bring any equipment with me at all.
Yeah.
Like, I literally tell people if they want to put their equipment around, if they want to investigate, that's fine. But again, every significant interaction that I've had with any kind of entity, spirit, ghost, whatever you want to call it, has happened because they wanted to be part of what I was doing. And usually what I'm doing is sitting around and telling stories, and they just want to sit and listen and be a part of that conversation.
Nice.
When human beings have two major fears, right? Public speaking and death. Those are the two major fears. Those are the two major fears of human beings on the planet. And in that order, more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of dying.
Really?
So, yeah. And so if you think about it in ghostly terms, right? They've already experienced death. They only have one fear left. It's fucking public speaking. And then people go into buildings and demand that they fucking speak in public. Like, take the pressure off. Go light with it. Do you like popcorn or do you like ice cream? Like, be light with it.
Yeah, it was always funny to me when people mention how people are so scared of public speaking. And it's like, it's not that bad. Like, I've done it. You've obviously done it a million times. I've done it several times. It's like, it's quite exhilarating. You'd love it. So if anyone who's like, I'm afraid of public speaking, try it, man. It's fucking awesome.
It is awesome, but you must admit, Tim, I will admit this. I don't know. Maybe I'm different than you. There's a moment before I have to go up and host something or give a lecture. There's a moment where I'm a little nervous. Oh,
yeah. You see, with you, it's a moment. With me, it's like quite some time, and I'm a miserable asshole. So, yes, I'm definitely...
I understand people being afraid of doing
a grumpy boy for like an hour or two before I have to go on. So, but when you're up there, it's awesome. So, folks, there's nothing to be afraid of. Tenney and I are just smoking cigarettes now. So,
yeah, it's turned into that.
We're just looking at each other.
The last two cigarette smokers
left in the paranormal community. I'll tell you this, I'm going on vacation next week to Canada. And on the way, I'm going to stop at the Stanton Friedman Museum exhibit in New Brunswick to regale myself in Friedmania, man.
That's too funny. You had the chance to meet Stan, didn't you?
I met Stan many times.
Okay.
Many times, yeah. He was a great dude. I wish he was around nowadays, but I don't know, he'd be probably treated like shit, so.
Yeah, it's hard thinking about what that era would be like right now. Like, I don't know which side they would fall on.
Politically and all that. Yes, I will say this. I had Jim Mars on right before he died. He was like, social media and all that can't influence how someone votes. And I was just like, bro, this is your wheelhouse, man. And it was like such a blind spot. And I'm like, oh no. So yeah, it was. I'd be interested in hearing what Jim would think and everything else. It's interesting too, because you've been around as long as I have. I was talking about this with I think Aaron Gligas. So it's just kind of like Alex Jones. He came along. He was like, oh, I'm gonna fight the New World Order, and it's like, dude, bro, you've taken a side. You're not fighting the New World Order. You're fucking part of the fucking one side of this fight.
Yeah, when he was hosting his radio show, his local radio show in Texas back in the 90s, like I would randomly call into that show.
Oh, really?
And we would talk about aliens and UFOs and stuff. And then the last time I talked to him, emailed him, because we only ever talked through email, was like maybe the day of or the day after Y2K, and he had been on his radio show saying, literally, he was saying that atomic power plants were blowing up and the Chinese were invading.
Oh, God.
And I emailed him and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we cannot talk anymore, like whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus.
You talk about Stan, though. I'll tell you what, I have this, the first time I saw Stanton.
You met Stan plenty of times, I'm sure.
Yeah. Saw him lecture a bunch. And
yes, he was the man. I had friends who had a podcast. They were like, "Well, we don't want to have Stan on because he's fucking like been on every show." I'm like, brother, you have Stan on. Like you have you have the chance to have the Rolling Stones on your fucking show. Like that you have the legend on the fucking show. I don't give a fuck if you ask him the same questions everybody else asks him. Like, that's Stan. So yeah, he was the man.
I remember someone at this is probably I don't remember what library I was at, but I was at a library doing a lecture. And I used to have a slide projector and slides. It was the 1991,
Yeah.
And someone was complaining that my slide projector was too loud. And all I could think about was the first time I saw Stan, he had the loudest fucking slide projector I'd ever heard in my life. And he had like 14 boxes of slides.
Yeah.
And it was like unbelievable. And I thought in my head, like, this person could have never made it through a Stanton Friedman lecture, like, ever.
Yeah, no. It's ironic that you share that story because one of my first memories of Stan was that I went to the 2004 X conference, which was like the Woodstock of crazy UFO people. And I was giving out resumes and shit, like thinking I was going to get a job in the world of UFOs. And I ran Stan's slide projector for his thing, and I was like, "This is the greatest! This is the greatest! I've reached the level. I'm on my way in the world of UFOs." And I was flipping Stan's slides. So yeah.
I think too that you say the 2004 conference. I think people sometimes do forget. Like I do, I have. I'm going to a conference next week. I'm going to doing a Strange Escapes in Missouri with Amy Bruni and Alex LeMay and a bunch of other people. But people will always be like, "Oh my God, it's like these are so relaxed."
Yeah,
fucking paranormal conventions have always been fucking relaxed.
Yes.
And there's always been like high madness, drunkenness. Like it's a conference.
Oh yeah.
I went to, I can't even tell you what year it was. It was probably 92 or 93. I went to a UFO conference in like it was like the Bay Area UFO conference somewhere in California or something. And I mean, all the fucking heavy hitters of the 90s were there. Like, I think, Stan was there. And I think Bob Lazar was still around. He was at his peak.
Yes.
I think at that point. But everybody was there. Yeah, everybody was there. And it was the biggest, like, drunken shit show that I'd ever experienced. Like, ever. People were, like, flat earthers were fist fighting with hollow earthers, and, like, psychic Bigfoot people were fighting with physical Bigfoot people. It was madness, and I loved every fucking minute of it.
God bless these strange and unusual people. That's what we have come to conclude here on the show. Odd folks, man. Odd folks. So you're going to come out with another issue of the zine, and you've got the podcast that everyone loves. What's Up, Weirdo?
What's Up Weirdo about every week. Yeah, and that's at whatsupweirdo.com.
And you do all kinds of crazy shit with that show. I was like, I'm so jealous. I'll admit, because you know, you're like doing live shows, fucking. Sometimes you'll be hosting at a place or whatever. You have a crowd.
Yeah, we do live shows. We haven't done any this year. We're trying to figure out. We lost the bar. The bar that we were doing our live shows at got sold. So we've been trying to find a new bar to do one in. But we usually do like 2 or 3 live bar events, and then maybe like 2 or 3 YouTube live shows that we do.
Yeah.
And on those shows, we invite everybody from like the movie directors that we like to people who are in television shows that we like to paranormalists to occultists. Like everybody's allowed on the show. I don't think we've ever had you.
I'd be happy to come on anytime you want. You know that.
All right. But yeah, it's real free form. I think people like listening to us when they're in the shower or doing the dishes or like mowing the lawn.
Yes, no, I know. I get that feeling. Yeah. Yes, I had a show like that with Vanny for a while, but it was like the people turned weird.
Yeah.
the audience turned weird, and I'm like, I don't want to do this show anymore. These people, like, they kind of feel like they know us a little too well. But
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
The one thing that here's the other thing too is I know that everything, because of streaming and because of YouTube and everything, like everything has gone really long form. I mean, you and I just did, almost an hour and a half. But like with What's Up Weirdo, sometimes it's 28 minutes long, sometimes it's an hour long. Like it depends on what we have to talk about because we're just friends talking to each other.
That's the best kind of conversation, So
yeah, and you don't have to pay attention to it. Like some long form podcast, 3 or 4 hours long.
Oh God,
you got to fucking pay attention to everything because if you miss the bit, you don't understand what the rest is about. Like ours, you can just pop in, pop out. The fucking dog barks sometimes, and now I'm talking about she's talking about 90210. I'm talking about aliens. Like this, whatever it's going to be.
Were you unsettled by all the satanic messages in the opening ceremonies of the Olympics?
No, because there were no satanic messages.
Yes, thank you. I was being sarcastic, but yes.
I like when people are like, it started with a pale horse and a rider. And I'm like, that's a silver horse? And like,
I posted about it on Twitter and it got more reaction than almost anything I usually write. So I was like, oh, wow. And people were like, one guy was like, I don't care for the perversion of it all. And I'm like, dude, relax. It's France.
I'll tell you this.
It's fucking France, man. Like it's France having a party. Like, what do you expect? It's going to be perversion, dude.
Yeah. Jessica always asks me on What's Up Weirdo, or sometimes we'll just get into conversations about the Bible because I'm fascinated by the Bible as a story and a narrative. So I always give out these little hints about things in the Bible. So like the pale horse and the pale rider, like that thing, right? The word, the Hebrew word that's used and translated as pale does not mean white. So it's really strange whenever you see like a white horse as the pale horse. The word that they use actually means sickly yellow or green.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that whole narrative of like a white horse is just not what the Bible's even saying.
Oh my God. So even like Behold the Pale Horse is bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't even like the cover of that book is wrong.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah.
So that's like one tiny thing that everyone gets fucking wrong.
People are so strange. The fucking opening ceremonies of the Olympics are always this like weird, grandiose fucking, people trying to be weird and interesting and fucking guess what's weird and interesting? The occult and kooky shit, like people wearing antlers on their heads or whatever. It's like
or Lady Gaga dancing around in feathers doing like quasi burlesque. Like it is what it is.
People get so weird about shit, man.
Yeah, and here's my thing. God bless Satan. I mean, I don't know how controversial this is, but I say this as a joke, but not really, right? So, like, I'm told by a lot of Christians that like God loves me and wants the best for me. Like, I haven't really heard from God in a while. Like, if that's true. Like Satan, who supposedly doesn't care about me, like calls me every weekend and says, go to the bar.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, spend one more hour on the couch. It's okay.
What? I'm going to end it right there. I think that's the perfect fucking closing on this one. John Tenney has been the guest, my friends, the legendary John Tenney. You can find out more from him. I have the link tree. Just fucking punch in John Tenney on Google. You'll find him. John, JOHNTENNEY. He's prolific. He's all over the place. The newest thing is The Prince of Outer Space, the story of Lee Childress. And that's a zine. As I said earlier, I think the zine thing is going to be fucking... I think it might be the new thing in the next few years. So the big thing that bothers me is that there's a lot of kids on TikTok who are saying Zine, and that's driving me crazy. Really?
Yeah.
Not that it's driving me crazy. Really, I am irritated by it as well.
Yeah. So. Zine rhymed with green, not pine. It's not a Zine.
Oh my God. These fucking young people. The young people will never learn, man. They're never gonna learn. Jesus Christ. Are you on TikTok?
I am.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I am.
What do you do on TikTok?
Let's see. I do like, I've probably only posted like 50 things on there, but I do like.
That's a lot more than you think. All right.
Sometimes I go to when I'm traveling, I'll go to an airport and I'll tell people like there's a ghost in this airport, and I'll start it off all spooky, but I carry chalk with me wherever I go. And so I just draw it always ends with, I have a little chalk drawing of a ghost somewhere on a wall. And then like, I'll flash the camera over to the ghost.
All right. That's why you're not allowed in the fucking Providence airport. You won't feel like you drew a fucking ghost on the carpet, dude. We had to vacuum that shit like
chalk,
4 times.
It can be easily erased if the police start to come around.
Thank you so much. Before I let John go, don't hang up, whatever it's called, John. I'll talk to you in a minute. That's the end of the show right now, and we're going to be back in September 4th for BOA Revival. I don't know if I'll call it season 2 or whatever, but certainly I'm going to take the month of fucking August off. I'm going up to see Stan Freeman Museum. I'm going to relax, and I already have like 2 shows scheduled for August to tape, so it's not going to be like, oh, Binnall left and didn't come back. I already have shows lined up. So that's it for now. John, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.